In today's episode of City Skylines, we're going to turn this area into this area. If you want to see the build along and process, stick with me and let's get going. Alright, before we go into the time-lapse, where I'm going to explain a little bit more what we are doing, I'm going to show you the situation before we start the revamp. Now, as you can tell, there are a lot of issues. This is the city that grew while I was building either the harbor or the airport over here. So I didn't really pay too much attention after zoning, and so we are left off with the situation over here. This is my main center over here with the main station right across this area. This is insanely high dense, and also we have a lot of issues with the traffic. You can see it's early in the morning now, and as soon as I would start off now going towards the 9 o'clock kind of destination time, 8-9 o'clock, where everyone wants to go to the center city, it is really, oops, I didn't want to mean to pause the game. It is really starting to be really cramped, like a lot of problems here. The main station isn't fully connected quite yet. We don't really have any connection to the outskirts anyways. We don't have a connection to the industrial zone other than this highway over here. Well, it's not even a highway, it's like a multi-lane road, but it's not really super efficient. That said, we will fix quite a lot, but not everything in today's episode, because there was just too much to fix. But it's giving you a good idea of how this central area will look like. So I would say let's move into the time lapse, and then afterwards we meet again in the real-time part after the main changes are done. Alright, welcome to the time-lapse, and I'm gonna talk you through most of my process, specifically what I thought about. There's a lot I left out simply because it was just too much and would be too distracting in time-lapse. But the first thing I tackled was the main connection of roads into the hub, so the main city center. I struggled quite a lot bringing that in, so you should definitely plan that ahead and not like me, definitely later on. So what I wanted to do is to have like a ingoing and outgoing street that is completely separated from each other, but in our case it's actually above each other. So the raised part of it will be the ingoing track, and the other one, the lower one, is going to be the outbound street. So both of them will be super wide streets, will be one-way streets with like 4 lanes. I think the other one even 6 lanes to get out of the city, and both will eventually lead into the highway and the other connections to like the suburban areas and the lower residential areas, which I will change between the time-lapse and the final real-time part. You will see there's a huge change, because I just went in and spent hours, like honestly 3 hours, figuring out exactly which type of road connections I needed to get rid of most of the traffic issues. Not all, that's basically impossible in this game, but most of them are resolved. So I really want to make the city grow a lot, like really big, and therefore I need to have like a good foundation. But this over here you see is the main foundation that is basically carrying the entire idea. So what I have over here is a completely different approach now to the central highway we have over here. Now this is a connection that goes into one of the larger suburban areas, but there's also, it's not only about low residential area, there's a lot education going on. We've got the big university there, we've got the high school there, we've got a lot of bigger areas where students and also other people need to go. So there's a huge traffic exchange between those two parts, and so I wanted to have that bridge. I wanted to also get rid of the roundabout on this side of the track or of the highway, because it caused too many problems there. And I wanted to also have some ingoing and outgoing connections to the highway. I just figured later on that the highway wasn't really connected, and this is why the highway didn't solve any issues and caused more issues than it was solving, because there was only one connection to the highway a little further up north, and that created some crazy traffic jams over there. I think if you are also struggling with the traffic in City Skylines 2, I think one of the biggest fixes for me was to connect all the outside connections that you have available from different directions into your city. So that way you create like a balanced in and outgoing traffic to your city, because the citizens will search their best way. It's not always the quickest way, it's the most efficient way for them, which at least this is something they stick true to what they said in all these development journals and stuff like that. It just really works, but you have to give them the option. Here you can see my biggest change, as I said, making sure that we have a couple of high density roads, like with a lot of lanes going in and out of the city, and then making sure that we have this bridge crossing over. I had to redo it a couple of times simply because of the problem that the roads weren't connecting properly, but I'm very happy with the happy and pleased with the final result, as you've already seen at the beginning, the little teaser. Now, I also had that issue that I wanted to have the central area also as like a traffic hub. It shouldn't only be like something big, but also very much creating like a worthy area. So you can see I'm putting a lot of these parks and sports situations below the raised area. I kind of like this vibe, like this is a huge US city vibe with having this raised road in the center and then having all these facilities and stuff down below. And, you know, talking about this, you know, I just kind of creates wanderlust in me again. I definitely need to go on holidays again. My God, like far away. I remember the time in the US, and I definitely want to go there back again, discovering the US again. I've been to LA and I've been to San Francisco, even though I just had a night in LA. It's not that much. So yeah, maybe just visiting that one again would be lovely. But yeah, speaking of traffic, you can see that I did connect the different trains over here. I put like a public community pool in here and also ensured that we have a tram connection now. And I also made sure that a huge part of the center city is basically only pedestrian only. And well, it's pedestrian and obviously the some of the delivery traffic that is able to use the pedestrian path. But I made another huge mistake, which I'm going to fix later on. It is fixed already in the version you'll see in the real-time part. But I left one of the parking opportunities I had put in the center city. I left them to the pedestrian road because I just upgraded my road. Little hint from my side here. They still would go with the car there to go into the parking lot. So it seems like the pedestrian road detection is failing at this point. So as soon as there is like a direction they want to go or like a destination they need to reach, then it basically creates that issue. Now, with that said, as soon as I've put this to another street, everything was resolved and the pedestrian road was a pedestrian road at the end of the day. So I'm very pleased with that. Now, yeah, just looking in these into these things, I'm very happy with overall the outcome of also the tram lines. It's been a struggle to bring them all in, as you can see over here. I try to really make sure that they fit nicely into the city. And I remember a video of 2020 who said it's a lot more fun trying to find the right connections afterwards. I will agree to a certain extent, but then again, it also is super painful at some point because things just don't work out the way you want them to, especially with the lack of tools like, for example, Move It or, you know, precision engineering, stuff like that. Even though I have to say that the, you know, Cities Skylines 2's capabilities are a lot better now and you can do a lot more. But yeah, just not having redo, undo and all these type of features is definitely slowing you down from the process. But I gotta admit that the result I achieved later on was, or is basically impossible to achieve in Cities Skylines 1 without the help of a lot of mods. So I'm very pleased that the game shows its capabilities. And I also have to say, and you'll see that later on in the real-time part, I did have some really decent performance during the build. Like, it's been surprisingly good. We are already at a decent kind of population, so that's definitely not the reason why performance is good. And I also didn't downgrade graphics. I found a very good, you know, sweet spot in my settings, I guess. So that is potentially also why it just runs well. And I have to admit, I always, whenever I can, I turn off the weather effect, so just to ensure that you don't have going on any rain or so, because that is just also creating a bit of a lower FPS. But other than that, I'm pleased with this too. Now, yeah, we talked a lot about the roads and tram network. I also made sure that I have the train connections in place before I went on. They are not connected as of now, but I already ensured that they have a good guidance out of the city. And I think it's potentially the first time ever in Cities Skylines 2 that I started struggling with my underground roads. And one thing that I find very interesting is, and this is something where I think the game needs to improve as well, the indication to which height level the underground facilities are needs to be improved. I honestly struggled so much to see if like a certain railway is like 5 meters below ground, or 6 meters, or 10 meters, or 16 meters. You never know. So you keep testing which height you need to go. And honestly, if there was a chance to view the underground from a 2D perspective from the side, I think it would be a hot mess. I'm very glad you don't. So that is very good. But yeah, continuing with our city center, I started also doing some more detailing, ensuring that we have a lot more parks going on. And eventually also I needed to look into the different tram lines and stuff. I also put some signature buildings in, like all the beautification that is required to make this area look good. And you'll see a huge leap forward after the time-lapse 2. This is mainly down to the fact that some of the detailing is even more distracting for a time-lapse than this already is. As I said, I tried now only speeding up by 5 times, which is, I think it is the highest you can go without making the time-lapse being too distracting. I think it's very helpful if you don't rotate the camera that much, but well, tell me when I'm building, you know. I need to look at things from all the different angles, so that's why it always is a little bit more tricky. And sometimes you see like a little break. This one I left in intentionally because I had this on my notes. Maybe for those of you who are struggling with some layouts and stuff, make sure to just open Google Maps and go into a region that you base off your series off, and then just look at some images and you'll find out how they lay out roads, how they lay out areas, and you know, just copy, just plainly copy things. I think this is then the easiest way of doing it. The same that applied to Planet Zoo is also applying to City Skylines too. You'll find the real world examples which is pretty surprising, well, to some, I guess, but you'll find them in the real world. So yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, this part of the video is called connections. I think one of the biggest issues I had with the traffic and why I couldn't see any of the improvements, which I said earlier, was that I didn't have all the connections in place. And I'm not only speaking of the outside connections, I'm also speaking of the connections to my, well, industrial zones, to my other suburban residential areas, and hence the people only had 1 or 2 ways to get into the area they needed to, and sometimes they even had to cross the entire city to get to a location because there was no way around the city that was quicker in a way. So not saying that there's none available, but it wasn't quicker. So I needed to improve a lot of areas dramatically over here, changing a lot of roads, making them bigger, making them capable of having more traffic to them. But we also have to talk, and this is the area of the video, or the part of the video I need to talk about that. The traffic AI, I would say it is improved over City Skylines 1, yes. But it still is freaking stupid at some point. Specifically, you know, normally you cut that out, but this is just me, okay? My English pronunciation sometimes isn't correct. It is exactly the same as the traffic AI. It sometimes doesn't know where to go, okay? This is the same. Now, while I'm struggling here with the form factor of this road, which was basically my stupidity to not deactivate snapping, but that's a different story. It's a good segue for me to talk about the traffic AI. Now, the traffic AI is, as I said, a bit better, and the pathfinding is definitely better. However, one thing that is still absolutely insane is the choice of lanes. Sometimes I really don't get it. Like there's a traffic jam forming completely out of no reason, simply because it just could be avoided by taking the left lane. Sometimes they queue up to the right-hand side lane, even though half of them in that lane don't even want to go to the right-hand side. They just would go straight on, and then they are just like confused to why there is traffic jams. And sometimes they change lanes so early on, despite having 2 or 3 lanes available to them. They always choose the farthest out to the right-hand side or left-hand side, depending on what traffic you have enabled, obviously, to being the one. But oh my god, that's causing so many issues. And the same applies to the usage of roundabouts. And I had this idea over here to create a roundabout the old-fashioned way by using like highways and stuff to see if that works better. Spoiler, it doesn't. So I also need to revamp this entire area, but that's not part of today's video. This is gonna be part of the revamp of the entire industrial zone anyways. And the industrial zone is a hot mess. As I said, this series started out to be a series which was focused on the highway and the harbor, to put everything in place to have enough residents and blah blah blah. And now, as this is done, I really want to make sure that this city is working and flowing and thriving to then go on to make some more creative stuff. I have some really cool stuff planned for the series that is only working if the city is working. So yeah, that is definitely going to be in the next episode, something really cool. Really looking forward to this. This is just this game is a lot of fun to play. And you know, the criticism is real, and there is a good reason for that. But I'm still enjoying this game so much, simply because the foundation feels so much stronger. I can't really put that in words. It's just like I enjoy playing it. I think this is the best sign of a game you can have. But we are moving towards the end of today's time lapse, and I just want to say again that, you know, fixing an area is not always within this area specifically. Sometimes it is a lot going on in other areas too that connect to this main area, and simply because we're speaking of the central hub of our city, I needed to ensure that we get multiple ways to get here, to get multiple tram connections, train connections, public transport connections via buses and taxis and stuff like that, and then also taking most of the traffic from the center of the city, and also just allowing electric vehicles to go to the center. Anyways, you want to see that in real time, I guess, so let's hand you over to the real-time Rudy and explore this city now in the actual game. Alright, as promised, we are back in the real-time part, and oh boy, things have changed quite dramatically, as you can tell. There's a lot of done basically off-screen, simply because it just became such a madness to do that with the time-lapse, and it would have been very annoying to watch potentially. So I left in time-lapse to explain what I'm doing, but this is the final result you're witnessing. Just let's do a little before and after. So that one over here is the before. And now you can see the after, just back in here. And I think it's just looking beautiful how it is right now. There's a lot of streets going on over here, but this is our city center. And I just decided to go with a lot of parks, a lot of greenery. You can see I placed a lot of trees there. Let me just go in a little and show you. So this is basically a little park area in between the highway. I turned this main road into a highway too. It's not a highway per se, it's just a highway for short parts. So as you can see over here, that's a highway. Then it's kind of interrupted real quick to make people go into the different live-in regions. And then from over here, they go back onto a highway situation where they have like a little inbound into the parking for the city center. So this is like one of the biggest parking areas for the city center. One thing I have forgotten to do, by the way, I should still do that, is a pedestrian path over here to the other side, bringing the people over from this end to this end, so to make sure that they can all access the main station, for example, and the city center, which now comes with a lot of different things, with a lot of parks in here, a bit of a subway connection. We do have a nice little connection with the tram as well. As you can see over here, this is the tram connection. We've got like a public pool, we've got the big train station in the center, and we've got also the raised highway. Well, it's not a highway, but it's like a big street going into the city, and I changed the traffic in a way that we have like an inflowing traffic and an outflowing traffic just below. And so that solved most of the issues, to be honest. They have a lot of more opportunities now to go inside and outside. We've got a basically nice tram situation going on with like another tram depot in the center here. I may change it later on because this area just screams for like a connection with the park down towards the river. I actually added a river, by the way. This is something you may have seen from the before and after, but I just completely added from this area to here, and oh boy, it takes an eternity until the water is in. So I need to go through for like an entire year to basically have this in the city. So yeah, that is really cool. Now let's go out of this view a little quick and show you the city itself, so you can actually see there's not really that many issues in the city center anymore. With a bit of rent issues here and there. There's a bit of a traffic jam in this section. Oh yeah, I see. I do see why. I need to just tell them to not go to the left hand side here, and also change this road a little bit. Now, as I've done a lot more suburban areas, this is also why there's a bit more of an inflow. But yeah, as I said, I actually improved the overall traffic situation quite dramatically by adding a lot more roads, a lot more options for them to go to the city. This is still a hot mess over here, which needs to be turned into something once we tackle this side. So this side of the city has been neglected entirely, but there is something I want to do with this region here specifically, so I'm really looking forward to that next episode. This episode was very important to fix that inner city, most of it at least. least. There are a couple of traffic jams forming over here, which are mostly down to these insane amounts of crosswalks, so I gotta have to get rid of them. I love this, for example, over here. I really love this. Oh, let me just go out of this camera. This is why I always use this camera to fly around, so this shows you the city so much more nice. I mean, look at that. Also, I love to see these campsites here from the people. Actually, is this like... Look, there are more over here. I'm not sure if they're always the same. It's not the same model, though, is it? No, it's not. And I like the fact that they have different tents going on here and there, like homeless people live in there. Yeah, I mean, little details, but I do like the fact that we have some of these sports areas here below the highway. It's kind of cramping that in a big city, just as you would do it. And I'm very happy with it. Like, look at this. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous by now. And there's this train track over here is not really too nice and seamless. I might change that, but in general it looks really cool. Just a couple of things I have to fix over here. I like how far you can see in the distance with the harbor there, and almost looks like a theme park, but that's just like some energy masts. I don't know, but yeah, I think that looks fairly decent. And one thing I just wanted to show you, I just did this real quick as a little test. If we go over here to the other side, I made like a sunken down version of the tram, as you can see over here. And I think this just works beautifully with the tram station down here. You know, it just comes to a halt. People can access and de-access or whatever, and then they can go back into the main city. We've got a lot of university stuff going on over here, some sports, some, you know, just in general, a lot of educational stuff going on over here. I think this is like the educational region next by this little, well, it's not a river, but it's kind of like this end of the river, which forms like a little lake. And I want to just make this like a little bigger and a bit more organic over here. I just wanted to test if the river gets here. Well, the answer is yes, so I can actually make that look a lot nicer. But man, I'm really happy with the city center. Doesn't that look quite nice? I really love it. I really love it. Let's just actually access the focal length over here, because I really like this look sometimes. Oh, look at that, just beautiful, the city. Okay, now it's blurring together a little, but here you go. That is a beautiful, lovely city to look at. Oh, just look at that with the river in front. And yeah, I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan. I mean, it's definitely nice looking, a lot better looking than I expected it to be before I did all the changes. But my god, they did take longer than I expected, which I think, you know, is always the same. But here we go. That's it for today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. If you are more in for more City Skylines 2 content, and there's also a lot more different stuff coming, more creative stuff too, keep your eyes on the channel, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be in for a lot more, and there's a lot more coming too. So thank you so much as always for your support. Have a lovely, lovely day, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Goodbye.